He didn't just start out in real estate. In the mid-90s, he was thriving in the computer industry.
You could buy an oceanfront condo. We ended up negotiating two of them, one for him, one for me, 80 grand. We bought a 100-acre cattle pasture and we planted it in teak trees in 1999. Those trees will be harvested next month. In 25 years, I'm either going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this, or in 25 years, I'm not going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this. You actually get to assemble the wheelchair, put somebody in it, and then cry. Rule out quickly, rule in slowly. Weird is wonderful, man. Weird is wonderful.
Hey Weirdos, welcome back. Today we have an absolutely incredible guest with us. His name is Mike Cobb, and he's the co-founder and CEO of ECI Development, a company that's been building and managing resort communities across Latin America for over 25 years. But here's what makes Mike's story so compelling. He didn't just start out in real estate. In the mid-90s, he was thriving in the computer industry. He had success, stability, and a solid career path. But then he recognized something that most people miss: a massive gap between how people dream about living abroad and how they actually make it happen. So he left it all behind and moved to Belize to build something different. Today, Mike has helped thousands of people, expats, investors, digital nomads, turn their dream of living abroad into reality. He's built communities in Belize, Nicaragua, Panama, and beyond. He has been named one of the 100 outstanding CEOs in Central America and the Caribbean. And he's pioneered some truly unique investment strategies, including a 25-year Teak investment that's about to pay off in a big way. Whether you're curious about retiring abroad, investing internationally, creating a Plan B lifestyle, or just wanting to hear a story of an entrepreneur who left everything to build something meaningful, this episode's for you. Welcome to the show. We're excited to dive into your journey.
Great to be here. Cody, by the way, I love being called a weirdo because I am a weirdo. Just the fact that you called all your listeners weirdos is wonderful too. I had no idea. That's tremendous. Because you know what? I think that if you're running down the middle of the road, not a weirdo, gosh, you're just missing out on so many wonderful things in life, right? And it's not just the business side, it's the life aspects of crazy. So I was in Mongolia this summer. I don't know if you
No, I have not, unfortunately.
No. Anyway, so I was at this incredible event and I was offered the opportunity, about 1,200 people in a big circle around this field, right, with tents set up, and they had archery, horseback riding, and then professional Mongolian sumo wrestling. And I had the opportunity, please take me down. I want to wrestle. And he goes, no, you don't. I'm like, yes, I really do want to wrestle. And so he signed me. He was my sponsor. We went to the official table, signed me up as a professional Mongolian sumo wrestler. And I wrestled professionally. Now I got my ass kicked. I mean, I was out in like 30 seconds, right? But you know what? Like I said, yes. And so I now have a professional Mongolian record of 0-1, and it's probably where it's going to stay. I'm not doing it again. Weird is wonderful, man. Weird is wonderful. So I'm really, really happy to be here with you today. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And I'll just kind of add some sentiment to that. The whole reason I'm weird is because I fought against it for years, always being like the good person, trying to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
And I realized that it's always been fun on me, and that I've done a lot of really weird, and every opportunity that I've had to do those weird things, it has given me more insight, better understanding, and more life.
Yeah. You know, look, the Mongolia thing's funny, but you know, Robert Frost, you know, the story of two paths that diverged in the wood, and I took the path less traveled, and it has made all the difference, right? I mean, that's just, right.
So I do want to get into your successful career.
Okay.
I want to understand why you bailed. Like I kind of brought it into the intro a little bit, but can you give us your story?
Yeah, I was in the computer business, and I went to Belize on vacation with a buddy of mine. This was 1993, and came back, a few months later, and we bought a couple condos because, I mean, it was unbelievable. You could buy an oceanfront condo. We ended up negotiating two of them, one for him, one for me, 80 grand, right? Oceanfront condo, 80 grand, right? Anyway, and they were listed at 100, right? And we got a 20% discount because we were willing to wire full payment. And so whatever, over the next several months, we're sitting by the pool, the developer, we get to know him. And I don't know, 6, 8 months into it, we're like, hey, Jim, what's the deal? Why aren't you finishing these buildings? He had a whole bunch of buildings that weren't done. And he tells us that most of his buyers need financing, right? So a Canadian coming down to buy property or an American coming down to buy property, no bank in Newfoundland or Ontario or Chicago is going to lend money on collateral in Belize, right? They're just not. And then the banks in Belize wouldn't lend to foreigners. And so all these developers, right, they didn't know what they didn't know. And what they didn't know was there was no mortgage money, right? In their head, they had a system. I'm going to invest, $3, $4, $5 million. I'm going to build a bunch of stuff. I'm going to sell it, make my money, build some more, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is like they had to finance. And when they were financing, they ran out of money. And so a lot of these guys just got stuck because they just made an assumption. Oh, there's mortgage financing. Why would you even question that assumption to begin with, right? So Joel and I, my business partner, Joel and I were just hanging out by the pool talking to Jim. And we said, hey, Jim, would you sell us your paper, your mortgage paper that you're holding for 80% or 20% off? He didn't even bat an eye. He goes, yes. It's just like that. He goes, yes. And so an idea, 1994, this idea of a mortgage company was born. I went out to a bunch of my buddies in the computer business, Joel went out to a bunch of his clients. We rounded up a bunch of money. We came down to Belize and we started our mortgage company. We bought mortgages, but very quickly we couldn't raise enough money through friends and family. And we decided that we would pursue a banking license in Belize. And that took years. And we finally got our banking license in 2003. So our bank's now, 22, whatever years old. We're still really a mortgage company, but to answer your question, we saw a need in the marketplace. We saw a need that was not being served. And we said, can we serve it? And the answer was yes. And then how do we serve it? And then, as we evolved, we started a bank and we brought in professional bankers to run a business that would solve this need, for decades, right? So that's how I got started in the region. And I left the computer business in 1998. So.
Well, you did a good thing because you got right out before the dot-com bubble.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But I do want to just point out here that you had set something, like you had created something that should be there, right? Like it's not new. It's not something that's come out of. I heard a statement one day that the majority of good businesses are boring businesses, things that already exist. You're just recreating where they don't exist. But you took that opportunity because you saw it didn't exist. And good on you. What did that transition look like? Was it a struggle to leave and get everything over there?
Well, it's interesting because it's a remote business. I know digital nomad is certainly something that you mentioned you wanted to talk about. It's a remote business. I could run that business largely from the United States. Our cap, not as a mortgage company, not as a bank, right? The bank's different, but as a mortgage company for the first 10 years, right? Like literally we would, the money was up in North America. So we would call people, visit people, raise money. And then we would go down and we would, basically walk the beach, literally walk the beach, meet developers, meet project owners, introduce ourselves, go in, take a look at their properties. If they had paper they wanted to sell, right? And so we got to know the collateral, so to speak. And then my business partner would do the research on title and, the paper side of it. And then we would transact, right? We would agree to buy some mortgages, some not, whatever. So the business was, 4 or 5 times a year in person in Belize, but then, up in the States. But what really got me full time was, this is crazy. So and back then this would have been like 95, 94, 95, 96. Like everybody today has a camera with them all the time, right? Well, I didn't carry a camera around, right? So I remember walking into this one developer's condo, looking at looking at the collateral, right? Doing a site inspection before we bought the mortgages, right? I walk in, it's a beautiful condo. It's near the ocean. It has an ocean view. It's solid concrete. It's a great product, right? And I walk in and there's, I really wish I had a camera. Anyway, I walk in, there's one outlet on one wall in the living room with 2 outlet strips, extension cords plugged into the outlet strips with outlet strips at the end. So they had power the whole way around the living room, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And then there are other places where the cabinets like the countertop would be too high or too low, door handles at every height you could imagine. Here's another one. The light in the bathroom was back here in most cases, right? Instead of being here, right? And so like, and my business partner and I, we looked at this, we said, like, it's a really nice condo. It's well built, right? Structurally, it's a good product, right? But it didn't meet our conventions as North Americans, as a North American consumer. And we said almost all of these problems are free to fix. Like, yeah, I mean, the outlets cost $10 a piece or something, right? But I mean, like in the general scheme of things, every one of these problems was free to fix. And that's why we got in the development business. We said, look, we can build the same quality of product, but we can have it meet North American standards. And so we did. We started our development company in '96, and then I left to really head up he really is the lawyer and the deal money guy. So he's on our banking side, finance and banking side. I'm more of a boots on the ground guy. So in '96, we started the development company, left the computer business in '98. And then in 2002, moved to Nicaragua to build out our first very large greenfield site, which is 3.5 miles of beach. It's a giant property. It's 2,500 acres. And what we realized, Cody, was that it took a little while to get our heads around it. But when you have a property that's 3.5 miles of beach and about a mile deep, like, you're actually building a small town, right? I mean, you think about a small town, 3 by 1, right? I mean, that's kind of like what it is. And so we went out, we actually hired urban planners, city planners to help us really get it right the first time. Because if you don't, then you put stuff where it shouldn't be, and your road access and right of ways, and you just kind of can, booger it all up and mess it up. And so we hired an urban planner to help us get it right. So in 2002, I moved to Nicaragua for what I thought would be a couple, 3 years, and ended up living there for a total of 14 years. Took a 2-year-old daughter with us, and had another one while we were down there. And we just had this incredible, wonderful expat living experience, as well as business, right? Because we were living there as a family too. So yeah, I've done both, and it's wonderful. Expatting is a wonderful thing, which is why so many digital nomads want to do it. I get it. I totally get it. I've been there. I lived it, loved it.
The only reason I haven't is because I have 4 animals.
What kind of animals?
So I have a dog who's getting older, and then 3 cats.
Okay.
With my
They
partner.
travel, by the way, Cody. Just let you know.
I know, but it took a lot out of them to get even to the island. We took 3 days in a car to get them here, and and then also the laws around like animal imports, like they've got to be quarantined and stuff like that too. We're waiting until they go, and then that's when we're gonna start looking at what we want to have in our lives.
Good. Yeah. And by the way, the animals do travel, and the quarantine rules and things like that, right? And I say that just so people, like in your case, maybe you don't want to do that, but other people might say, well, I've got animals, I can't. We took a dog with us. We took a dog to Nicaragua, and we brought a dog back, different dog in 14 years, right? But anyway, we did travel in both directions with animals. And the one thing that they're very, very strict about in both directions are like the shots and the certifications and the vet reports. And so if you follow those rules very, very precisely, and I use the word precisely on purpose, precisely, moving animals across border is not as big a deal as we might imagine, right? So
I also found out that not too long ago that there's also private jets that will take animals, like babysit them across and get them there for you. So that's also an opportunity for anybody out there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I want to get into that building a community you kind of touched on.
Yeah.
When you were building it in Nicaragua, did the community, the extended community, get to take away a lot of that learning and stuff too? Like, because I imagine when you started a development company out there and kind of established a standard, that people would start picking it up along the way. Did you see that kind of growth?
That's interesting. In some ways, yes, but in other ways, no. What I absolutely believe is, and I'm a capitalist, right? I'm a free market capitalist, right? And what I believe is that capitalism delivers the best and most benefit of any economic system. And it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. There's no perfect system, right? But when you go create jobs and you create something that is economically sustainable beyond your participation, right? And so by creating this small town, which we have now done, we have a small town that we built called Grand Pacifica. And and if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and the company closes, it's going to continue. Like there's real economic viability long term. And when we first bought the property in 2000, there was a paved road that kind of ran parallel to the coast, and we were 11 kilometers from the paved road out to the coast on a dirt road. And the first kilometer or two was passable. The next, 9 kilometers were really in rainy season impassable, truly impassable. There were many times that we would hire a tractor to drive us the last 8-9 kilometers to the property because we couldn't go in a vehicle, right? There was no electricity. And so we've improved the roads. Are now paved. We 3-phase power all the way out. So everybody along that road has power. There were no homes made out of concrete for that last 8 or 9 kilometers. Maybe some wood shacks, some plastic, maybe a few tin roofs. But I mean, it was wood, plastic, and tin. And today you drive out there are lots of concrete homes. There are schools, there are businesses. The economic viability has changed so much. And we've done wonderful things in the community from a corporate social responsibility standpoint too, right? And so when you mix all of these things together and you create this, what I call sustainable economic engine, and I think that's really important, right? Then you've transformed a greater community. And from the very beginning, we've encouraged our owners, property owners, and then residents, right? And guests, people who come down and rent, because a lot of our owners rent their houses out, right? Airbnb or stuff like that, right? So we encourage guests and we encourage owners and we encourage residents to engage with the Rotary clubs, the Lions Club, a different social, and get out into the community. We just had our big golf tournament last Sunday. I don't know how much money they raised, probably 15, 20 grand or something. And take all that money and they buy toys for the kids in the community, right? And so we just ongoing all the time, these kinds of things, but they're organic. At the beginning, we fostered them, right? But now they've taken a life of their own because this is a way to create meaning and significance in your life. And so as people at the beginning, it was mostly retirees. So we had a lot of people who had left their jobs, and there's a hole in your life, right? When you leave your job, you leave your social network and move to a new place. And so we encouraged and fostered people to get involved and start projects and work with other, organizations. And now it's really all organic. It's ground up, delivered, I don't know, a couple thousand wheelchairs to Nicaragua, Belize over the years. And they're, in fact, the wheelchair Share the Love is the group. They're in Belize right now, distributing, I think, a container of wheelchairs, which is 280 wheelchairs, right? So these are the kinds of things that really engage you socially in the community. And that's really important for everybody. Everybody wins. There's no loser in that environment. But to come back to your question, Cody, because I think it's a really important one, there is, and we did massive training, right? You hire somebody, you put them through training programs, they take those skills with them. Like if they quit tomorrow, they take them with, right? I mean, we don't own that skill. We don't own the person, right? And so you would think that a lot of this knowledge about, standardization of countertops and door handles and other things, right? Sizing of electric panel boxes. I mean, there's a huge one, right? I mean, you put in a 30 amp panel box because that's the norm in, say, Nicaragua, right? Or maybe it's a 50 amp, right? I mean, the American comes down there and plugs in 6 giant TVs and air conditioners and right, it's not working, right? So you would think that some of these things would have kind of carried through. They didn't. Training that did carry through, by the way, what I would say are the skill sets that allow you to build a quality product, right? That skill set, Maestro de Obra, foreman, right? The Maestro de Obra is a foreman, I guess, in English. Anyway, and so we did a lot of classes with them. We worked with the government training organizations. So it was free to the person, right? Which is great. And so those kinds of skills do get passed on and get taken away. But a lot of the standardization or even familiar types of things that we as a North American, just something as simple as light switches that turn on up. I mean, you just think about that. That's just like you turn on up, off, down, right? But if you're an electrician in a house with no electricity, or maybe you have a couple of things, right? Does the switch work? Yes or no? That's all you get. Yes, the switch works, right? You delivered a working thing. but the customary thing is on, off, right? So, I mean, and there's 1,000 things like that in a home, right? Or a condo, but we just take for granted. And a lot of that stuff I would hope would move to the next sort of, but it hasn't, to answer your question. So I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm just thinking how we're building out here, but I guess there is a lot more standardization across the board in Canada than there is in Nicaragua. Although I do want to point out that,
or Costa Rica or Panama, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, everyone talks about Costa Rica. I mean, and they've done a tremendous job of marketing themselves for many decades, 4 or 5 decades. Panama, 3, 4 decades. But the standardization to an American or Canadian sensibility still lags, right? Still lags. Yeah.
I assume as more people come that way, it's gonna increase because there's just gonna be more want, more demand for it. I do want to point out that you guys created Lions Clubs. So I'm from Ontario, where we have Lions Clubs, but nobody really engages with them. And now I'm in a town that really has Lions Club. The biggest thing I'm surprised about for Newfoundland is the amount of fundraising they do. Everything that they need in a community sense, they have Lions Clubs or community organizations funding it through lotteries, that type of thing. How do you get people to engage with Lions Clubs? Because the problem here now is we have an aging population and nobody younger wants to engage. How do you bypass that?
Boy, that's a great question. I'm not so familiar with Lions. Our work has largely been with Rotary. Helped establish 3 Rotary clubs now, which is great. Well, 2 Rotaries and 1 Rotaract. And so the answer to your question is Rotaract is for 30 or 35 year and under. I can't remember. Call it 35 and under people. I call them kids. That's my age. They're kids. But anyway, I feel whatever. 35 and under people to be in Rotary. So they've kind of created this feeder system because Rotary and Lions, by the way, much more than a service organization. I mean, first and foremost, a service organization, but it's also a peer network, right? It's a place that you can go be with other people in business and have peer conversations, right? You're a doctor, they're a lawyer, he's an accountant, somebody else is a business people, whatever. And you can have these conversations that are relevant to your life and professional existence, right? And so there's also an age thing, right? A generational thing. So Rotaract allows the young professionals to kind of be peers, and then they can graduate into Rotary, and be their older peers, right? I don't know if Lions has the same kind of feeder system or not. If they do, I think it's tremendously important. Truly, at the end of the day, Cody, it's about leadership, inspired leadership. That's what will drive membership and member involvement. And so, if they can find a young, whatever, 30-year-old, right? Too young, but 30-year-old business person and say, look, we need you to build out the next generation of Lions, and let that be their mandate, right? I have one mandate. It's to build out a new generation of Lions. And so that kind of inspired leadership with purpose, right? You have to give people purpose. We're not just raising money because whoopty crap, we're raising money. No. What are we doing with that money? Like, how are we going to go? Like, the thing I love about the Wheelchair Foundation and Chair of the Love, who we specifically work with, they're a subset of the Wheelchair Foundation, is you actually get to go on deliveries. And I've been on many deliveries, and you actually get to assemble the wheelchair, put somebody in it, and then cry, because in many cases, it's the first time this person has been able to get out of their house in years or decades. Cody, it's just so sad in some cases, right? We just take wheelchairs for granted in the first world. It's like, oh yeah, if you need one, you can get one, right? In the developing world, like it just may not ever be possible financially, right? And so coming back to the Lions, you find one inspired person who can help raise money, but then give purpose to that money. And hey team, we're going to go out and we're going to do X, Y, or Z together. So now there's a meaningful experience, a shared meaningful experience that they have, right? And they get to know one another. Right now you're working alongside somebody, maybe it's painting an old lady's house, I don't know, or fixing her porch or whatever. So, or building a ramp. Maybe the old lady's got a walker now and she can't go upstairs anymore. So you build a ramp to her front door, right? But that activity together for a day or a weekend or whatever it is, now you're building common experience in addition to the common reference as business peers or social peers, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. One inspired leader to take that role to say, I'm going to build out the next generation of leaders, right? Because at the end of the day, maybe you're president for a year or two, but then you can't be president forever. That doesn't work that way. So you need other people who would step in. Anyway, totally off the subject, but if you ever need a free week in Belize for one of your auctions or raffles, or the Lions Club does, we donate these all the time. So make a note that if you have a raffle coming up for Lions or another service organization or charity, we're always happy to give a free week in Belize as something you can raffle off, auction off, or whatever. So
I appreciate it. And I just want to add a plug for my mother's company here, All the Love for Cuba, where she does something similar. She runs a nonprofit out of Ontario helping the Cuban people getting medicine and wheelchairs and anything they need down there because they're hurting really bad.
You know what? Thanks for the plug. I mean, there are so many great reasons. Next time your mother's having a fundraiser, you let me know, please.
I will. Yep. Not a problem. Yep. So I do want to get into how we start getting into being an expat. Let's kind of go into that. How would one start looking at starting this journey?
You know, I think the easy, softest thing, you can do it from your house, right? You go online or listen to podcasts, whatever, right? You can do it driving. I mean, my goodness, talk about multitasking, right? Download some podcasts. There are plenty of groups out there that produce podcasts. One's called Expat. That's a good one. Live and Invest Overseas. International Living's the giant behemoth in the space, right? I don't know if they have podcasts or not, but anyway, there are lots of organizations out there that have podcasts. And you can just start to listen to stories about the people in their own words. Like, hey, I moved to Nicaragua. Somebody else moved to Portugal. Somebody else moved to Thailand, whatever. And you can start to hear stories in their own words. And you can read it, you can listen to it, whatever it is. But that's the easiest and softest way to get started because it doesn't cost anything. There's no risk. And you're not really putting yourself out in any real sense. The second thing would be to attend some conferences. Write for a publication called Escape Artist. They have a conference once a year. It's in March, I think, in Las Vegas. I can't remember the dates. But anyway, and I speak at their conference. I write articles for them. Full disclosure, I'm on their editorial board. So I'm on a call once a month, helping them figure out where to meet new people like me that they can interview and do that kind of stuff. But at an organization like Escape Artist, you can go to one of their conferences and now two things. You'll meet people like me in person and hang out. We hang out for 2-3 days and we have, meals together and cocktail receptions and we talk. And this is really important. And I always stress this when I present is get to know the other people sitting around you. These are fellow weirdos. I like that when you use this word. They're fellow weirdos just like you who are thinking way outside the box about doing something kind of, something really cool, right? And so make sure you connect with the other people and build that network and build that community. You're going to have all my information. My information's on the screen. It's in the book, whatever. And you're going to have all the other speakers. But if you walk away from this, how are you going to get to the guy sitting 3 seats down from you? Like, you're never going to hear from him again. You're not right. So build community. That's the first. Second thing. First thing is get information. Second thing is build community. And it can be presenters, right? And resources like me, but it's also the people, fellow weirdos looking at doing the same thing that you're going to do. You're going to build community. And once you've done those two things, the third step is get on an airplane and go visit your top. Here's the recommendation. And it's in my book, by the way. I write about this. It's so true. You can rule places out in 2-3 days, but it takes 3 to 6 months to rule something in. Right? So if you had 5 countries based on your research and they were geographically close, I mean, it could be Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and I don't know, Indonesia. I don't care. If you were thinking Southeast Asia, right? Go there for 2-3 weeks and spend 3-4 days in each country, right? Or it could be in Central America or the Caribbean, right? I mean, these places all allow, or Europe. I mean, it could be, 5 different places in Europe, whatever. Here's what I know for a fact. At the end of a couple week trip, 3 days in each place, there are going to be 2 or 3 of them. You're going to go, nah, right? Nah. There'll be one or two, maybe three, but hopefully just one or two where you go, yeah, maybe, right? Now you've ruled out, and I call it rule out quickly, rule in slowly. That's I think the title of the chapter, right? Rule out quickly, rule in slowly, right? And so then you want to find a time that you can go back and rent before you buy. Always, always, always as a lifestyle. Because here's the thing. Lifestyle is a heart decision, right? Lifestyle is, do I like it? Do I like my neighbors? Is there cool restaurants around? Blah, blah, blah. Investment can actually be made fairly quickly because investment's a head decision. Rational numbers, logic, facts, right? And it's a very different decision because even if I hated anchovies, right? And I had a pizza parlor, I would still sell anchovy pizza because investment's not about what I like. Investment's about what other people like, right? But if we're looking for a home, that's a heart decision, right? Rent for 3 to 6 months in each of these locations and see which one just one of them's just gonna, and you're gonna be like, this is it. Or thank God, you go to both of them, you go, holy shit, neither of these places, right? So, but thank goodness you didn't buy something there, right? I mean, talk about friction costs. People, and I get this, I do say this at conferences, and people kind of give me pushback, but Mike, I'm gonna spend rent for 3 months or 6 months. Like, yeah, spend rent for 3 or 6 months, because if you buy it and you don't like it, you've paid commissions, you've paid transfer taxes, you've paid lawyers, you've paid on the way in. Guess what? You have to pay it all on the way out too, right? Rent for 3 months, 6 months. 6 months is better. 3 months is okay, right? Because you will know. Yep.
Again, echo that sentiment because we did the same thing. We looked around the island here.
Yeah.
Ruled out spaces like, hey, there's no internet here, so there's no way.
Yeah.
But then we landed on where we are now, and I wanted to buy, and she didn't. She realized later after we bought that she doesn't like it as much as she thought it would.
Okay.
So I agree with that. Like, I love it. It's my lifestyle. It's not hers.
Okay. All right.
But now we're stuck in it for so long, right?
For some period of time, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're okay with that decision now. We're just trying to like get our investment back out now.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah, I do echo, live there for a little bit, figure out what you like, what you don't like.
Right.
The biggest problem is there's not enough to do here for her.
Is she young like you?
Yes. Yeah. She likes to go out, hang with friends and stuff, but not so much like
think
me.
I think the Lions Club's looking for a young leader. Okay.
The problem with the Lions Club here is it's mostly a male club.
All right.
So let's dive into the Teak investing that you talked about at the beginning, because I do want to get into that. What is that?
Well, okay. Can I, in the quick conversation we had before we got live, right? You mentioned the important thing was how business people, small to medium sized business people can really do things or capitalize in ways that have heretofore only been for the big businesses, right? And timber as an industry, right, has really for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, but certainly hundreds of years, been the playground of the uber wealthy, right? I mean, the uber wealthy people with hundreds of millions to billions of dollars in assets, whether it was family offices or giant timber businesses. John Malone's one, the Pegrant family up in Canada, right? I mean, they're into timber for whatever. I mean, but their net worths are half a billion. I don't know what they are, half a billion, big money, right? Or big endowments, right? Harvard and Yale have done a lot of timber investments, right? And the thing that there's a couple things about timber that make it, in the past anyway, very suitable and exclusive in the sense of excluding the small people, right? Is the fact that it was generally long time frames, anywhere from 15 to 50 years, right? And I think the average, I'm going to use the word average investor, looks at a time frame of 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years as, I can't do that. They just can't get their head. Now, doesn't mean if you're a small investor, you're an average investor, right? In fact, I would say that the weirdos listening to this would never call themselves average investors or average business people, because you're not a weirdo if you're average, right? That's the bottom line. So the the time frame scared a lot of average investors. And then the scale. In order to get any kind of economy of scale in timber, you had to be talking hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of acres of timberland, right? And so for both of those reasons, it was really exclusive to the uber wealthy or institutions, right? So back in 1998, I read an article, and it was about reforestation incentives in Panama. Now, we'd been working in Belize. We just started looking around Nicaragua and Honduras for new properties. And I was speaking a lot in Panama, which is how I heard about it. We bought a 100-acre cattle pasture, and we planted it in teak trees in 1999. Those trees will be harvested next month. And when the show is going to go live, it'll be harvested in January of 26, the beginning of a harvest. It'll take about 6 months to harvest the 100 acres. About a year and a half ago, we hired a guy from Canada to come down and build a sawmill for us so that we could take the logs, take them to our sawmill, process them into lumber, and actually process them into finished product, flooring, which is really fancy lumber, right? Hardwood flooring is really just fancy lumber, and also some very basic furniture, right? We're not doing fancy furniture, but teak, outdoor teak furniture, because teak is a phenomenal wood. It was first plantation grown by the British in India, right? And this is going back 350 years because it's extremely durable in an outdoor and marine environment. It's a high oil content. It's very, very hard. It doesn't rot. It doesn't get fungus. And so it's very useful as a commodity. And so the Brits, they were farming it for 350 years. And the other thing is that it's fairly small scale when you compare it to other timber, like pine in the southern part of the United States and the hardwoods and other areas. Those have to be, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres or hectares to work. But teak, because it's so highly valuable, and it's also very persnickety in where it wants to grow. It has very, very specific climate requirements. It needs a specific altitude, a specific amount of rainfall, a temperature band. The thing about the rainfall, which is kind of interesting, is very peculiar. It needs 5, 6, 7 months of incredible rain, tons of rain, right? Wow. But then it needs 4, 5, 6 months of no rain. And those geographies are very, very limited because typically you get rainforests where it can rain any day, every day, and it does or it doesn't, right? Or you have areas that are kind of, deciduous, right? Where it can, whatever. Teak is so specific because what the dry season does is it cures the teak. Teak will grow in a rainforest. In fact, it'll actually grow faster if it rains every day, right? The problem is the quality of the wood is low because it's soft. It never gets that dry season to cure and get that one characteristic of teak that's so valuable, which is the hardness aspect of it. So Panama has that. So we ended up planting 100 acres of teak. And, and I remember going to my Rotary meetings right across the street here. And the people at Rotary, because if you missed a meeting in Rotary, you had to put it, $10 in the jar for the next project or whatever it was, right? And so I'd go sit down at breakfast and I have to go up front, put my $10 in because I missed the meeting, and be like, "What are you doing, man? Like what? Like you're missing all these meetings." And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm down in Panama. We're looking for a farm. We found a farm. We hired a forestry company. We planted teak trees, and then over the course of about a year and in 25 years, we're going to cut these trees down. We're going to make a lot of money." And they were like, "You're insane. 25 years, Panama? What are you thinking, man?" And the answer that I came up with was this: in 25 years, I'm either going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this, or in 25 years, I'm not going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this. And you know what? 26 years into it, I'm really glad I did this. We're going to be cutting our trees now. We're going to harvest in a couple of months. I mean, this is exciting stuff. And then we're going to replant it. Then we're going to replant it. And in 25 years, the next harvest is for my daughters. And then those trees will get, cut and then new plants. And in 25 years, that next harvest will be for my grandchildren. I don't have grandchildren, right? Presumably I'll get them someday, right? And so one of the things that has made teak so compelling as an investment, and we've literally now helped several thousand people get into teak, is we were able to take these plantations and break them up into small enough pieces to make it affordable on the part of a teak owner. You can buy as little as 1/10 of a hectare, which is about a quarter acre, right? you can own 1/10 of a hectare, quarter acre, right? And it's professionally managed as a forest, right? So we have this economy of scale because now we actually have 3 plantations in Panama and 1 in Nicaragua. So we now have, I don't know, maybe 1,000 acres under cultivation, right? At all ages, right? And so we have this economy of scale that allow us to do it, but also then break it up into small enough pieces that it can be affordable under $10,000, right? So you can actually own your quarter acre of teak for under $10,000, and it starts to create this generational wealth stewardship or wealth legacy for your family. And I think that's probably been the biggest reason people like to do it. And just coming back to this average investor, weirdo investor, right? Savvy investor. What I've found is that the people who do this are not average investors at all. They understand that 25 years is a cash flow cycle, right? You can be a landlord and get a check every month. You can have a stock and get a dividend check every year. Those are cash flows, right? But 25-year cash flow is a legacy cash flow. And it's really been very rewarding to see people understand that and decide to own it. Right?
I just want to point out how amazing it is that you saw that investment 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is the weirdest. This is the thing that I can't get. So I just started in business. Like I was previously a software developer, worked for government, tech stuck to the script. I'm
Read
just
up
starting.
On you. Yes.
Yeah. This is just me starting my business, me becoming my own entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I always keep on finding that the problem with most people's investment is it has to be under 5 years.
Right.
And I'm like, any big business that's going to be available for next 100 years has to have at least a 10-year investment cycle.
Yeah.
At least. Because you need to dig yourself a hole to build the generational wealth that will be there.
What a great way to say that. Thank you. I may borrow that, by the way.
No problem. One of the biggest projects that I've been trying to look into is a self-sustaining aquaponic grocery store.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, you'd have your processing, your manufacturing, growing everything in one central location, and your storefront feeds your plenty.
Yeah.
And you don't need electricity. You don't need everything's recoupable after a big life cycle. Like you have to wait a giant life cycle to recoup the investment, but nobody wants to do it because of that life cycle.
Your point's well taken. The biggest challenge, by the way, Panama scares people. I just give you the 2 quickies. I don't know how we're doing on time, but the 2 quickie reasons that I love Panama. One, it's the same reason, Panama Canal, right? The Panama Canal is an economic stabilizer. That thing kicks off $5 billion a year of revenue to Panama, year in, year out. It's like the ATM machine, 5 billion, 5 billion, 5 billion, right? So the canal gives economic stability. But far more important when you're starting to talk about decades, right? 20, 30, 50 years, right? It also provides political stability. And I know the United States likes to say, oh, it's a vital U.S. strategic interest. Well, absolutely it is. But you know what? If you're a country that produces product and ships it, or you're a country that receives product that's been shipped on a boat, you want that canal open because it means your life is far better. So the reality of the canal is it's a vital strategic, everyone in the world interest, right?
Yeah.
Everyone in the world interest. And so politically, I think Panama is a great location. Economically, again, the economic piece. And the other thing that Panama did was, and we touched on this quickly in our pre-conversation, is this kind of craziness factor, the political factor, the economic and social instability factor, right? Panama has a phenomenal residency program. And the reason, and we've paired up ownership of the Teak with this residency program, and we call it the Plan B residency, right? It's not like you're going to move to many residencies around the world. If you get a residency somewhere, you got to live there half or more of the year, right? That's a requirement to keep your residency. Panama says, hey, come to Panama one day every 2 years and we'll keep your permanent residency active. I mean, anybody and everybody can fly to Panama one day every 2 years, into the country, out the next day, your permanent residency is maintained, right? And so it's really a Plan B residency because it's a permanent residency and it gives you the legal right to live in Panama for the rest of your life for as long as you want, right? If you ever choose to do so, but you don't have to choose to do so. Like stay where you are, stay in Canada, stay in Europe. But that flexibility, the plan B says if things really go off the rails, I have a place that I can go, and far more important, legally stay for as long as I want. And it's paired up with the teak. Now it's 2 teak parcels. It's about 26 grand. But you end up with 2 teak parcels. And coming back to the time thing, right? The length of time, that is the biggest reason people don't proceed with teak. They just can't get their head around, 25 years, economic stability, political stability. But there's the old saying, don't confuse me with the facts, right? So, whatever.
Sorry, a commodity is always going to be worth something regardless of what money is available.
Thank you. Right. And time is your friend on an investment like timber. Right.
Yeah.
And look, if somebody doesn't have, whatever, 10, it's less than 10 grand. I think it's eight grand or something. I can't remember. Anyway, 10 grand. Anyway, if you don't only put 8 to 10 grand in this, if you thought, well, you know what? I don't need that money. Like I'm okay without that money for the next 25 years. Like if all the trees burn down, which is a risk, it's a low risk, but it's a risk. And it's all we put all the risk factors out there, right? If all the trees go away for whatever reason, I lost my 10 grand. Like, is that going to change my life meaningfully? If the answer is yes, don't do it. Don't do it. Right. If the answer is no, well, then that's a pretty good thing to be looking at. Right. So
any monetary investment needs to be burnable money. That's just a fact of
absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I just have to wrap this up because I'm coming to time. I'll give you 5 minutes just to say your last words or give anybody audience. I'll make sure all of the links are in the description below, but
okay.
Just last words to the audience.
Okay. So it's not even going to take 5 minutes. Cody, it's really simple. Please take a copy of my book, and it's going to be free. It's on Amazon. It's a download. If you're listening and email Cody, we will send you a code that you can use at Amazon to download my book for free. How to buy your home overseas and get it right the first time. The second part is the most important part. Get it right the first time. This book is all about due diligence. If you're listening to this and you're even possibly considering a move overseas, get the book. It's free. There is zero cost to you. And that would be the one thing I would say. If you're thinking about going overseas, you need to change how you think. You need to begin to understand your blind spots. This book helps to identify many of the blind spots, not all of them, because you can never do that. But the most important thing my book does is it helps you start to change how you think so that you can see your own blind spots in your own specific situations. And Cody, that's it, man. Just grab the book. If you're thinking about going overseas, I'd love to make sure you have a copy of it.
Perfect. And I'll make sure everything's in the description down below for all of our audience. And to everybody out there, stay weird.
Yeah.